Good morning, and welcome to Parks Associates' 20th Annual Connections Summit at CES. We are so glad that you're here, and we are so grateful for 20 years of partnership with the CTA. Really a fantastic partnership. I want to start by thanking them so much for having us host a conversation about the business of the smart home and really the many businesses and markets that make up the whole connected home landscape. If this is your first Parks Associates event or the first time interacting with us, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We are a market research company at our core, and we come along the industry with evidence-based research to help you understand where the consumer's mindset is at, what are they looking for, what is really not hitting right, what are the business models that are going to work, and how is the competitive landscape shifting. So I wanted to start with a few words about what the smart home is and where we're at right now. So the smart home is increasingly a mainstream concept and a mainstream business. We track over 26 core product categories that make up really the core of the smart home, but of course connected consumer products, consumer IoT, make up hundreds of brands, hundreds of models, hundreds of products, and almost half of US internet households now own at least one of these 26 core smart home markets. Which is really fantastic, and again is why we say it's increasingly a mainstream market. And it's not just the devices that matter, it's also about the services that you attach and the businesses that are sustainable that come alongside those connected products. Lots of big announcements the past year that are continuing to drive this industry forward and really change up the landscape. Some right at the end of 2025 and moving into 2026. There's really big names really across several markets, but in the consumer world that we're watching that are making moves in the smart home, including IKEA, AT&T, Google, Apple, watching what they're doing, Walmart, introducing their own on-camera brand in partnership with Google at the end of the year. Roku making a play from entertainment and then coming into smart home. A lot is moving, a lot is shaking, and we've seen a lot of announcements already here at CES that are very exciting to watch. So we are talking all about the connected home all day. We are starting off the day tackling AI head on. What's real? What is the consumer thinking about when they're thinking about AI in the smart home today? Where is it going? We're talking about smart energy at 10. We're talking about prop tech. What's the market for smart living and multifamily spaces? A totally new channel perhaps for your businesses, your products, your services. Going to talk about modern security. What does the home security system market look like today? Very different than 5-8 years ago. And where is it going? It really continues to be the core of the smart home value proposition, that safety, security, peace of mind play. Why interoperability continues to matter. And there's several different standards that are really making some moves related to, of course, interoperability across the smart home, but also energy consumption sharing, especially in the appliances space. And then we'll talk about the connectivity landscape, because really connectivity to the home and the network around the home and the innovation that's happening at the router impacts everybody that's building on top of it. And we'll conclude the day with our Startup Power Panel, Disruptors Shaping the Smart Home, where we're going to hear not only from startups who are making big things happen, but also investors and ecosystem players who can share some of their own sage advice on how to go from innovation to success. We are ending the day, as we always do, with our networking reception, and you are all invited. We just ask that you RSVP. So if you haven't already RSVP'd for our networking reception this evening, it's in Treasure Island, which there is a walking bridge from the Venetian to the Treasure Island, and we have these handy walking maps. If you weren't handed one when you walked in, there's some on the table on the side. So we just ask that you scan the QR code and RSVP so that we have you to check you in when you get there, and make some new connections, make some new friends, catch up with old ones. And if we haven't met in the past, I'd love to meet you and hear what it is that you're working on. And finally, before we get going with our panel, I have to thank our sponsors. We could not continue to put on 20 years of Connection Summit without your support, including our sponsors for this year, Alarm.com, Origin, Raymond James, Johnson Controls, Ayla Networks, Ensure Protect, Avani, Plume, Rock IQ, Silicon Labs, TechSee, Telecom Design, Ubiety. Thank you to Arity, Morse Micro, and our supporting sponsor, Real Estate Business Review. So thank you all so much for being here. And with that, I'd love to just go ahead and hop into this panel and welcome our panelists to join me here on the stage. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Okay, so getting our day started today. Thank you all so much for being here. We are talking about the AI impact and where the revenues are at in the smart home. Where is AI delivering real value today? How do you make sometimes the large investments in AI actually pay off? How do you think about that strategically? And how do you think about connecting as part of this ecosystem? The connected home is nothing if not a place where there are many, many, many types of products and brands that work together and all have individual points of data and all have to operate for the good of the user. And what does that look like in the AI era? And so I'm going to ask each of our fantastic panelists today to introduce themselves and their organizations, and then we'll dive in. So Robin, I'd love to start with you. We have Robin Crawford, the Chief Business Development Officer with Origin AI.
Great, thanks so much for having me, and good morning, everyone. I'm Robin Crawford. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Origin AI. A little bit about Origin. So Origin AI is a global leader in Wi-Fi sensing. And if you're not familiar with Wi-Fi sensing uses AI and signal processing technologies to measure disruptions in AI signals in a space, so like a home or a business, and then we contextualize what's happening in that area. So without cameras or additional sensors, we can achieve verified human presence detection to know for sure if somebody's in that space, and to be able to separate humans from pets and then other movement like robot vacuum, for example.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. Also, Colin Cureton, the Product Line Vice President for the home business with Silicon Labs.
Thank you for hosting us, and good morning, everyone. My name is Colin Cureton. I run the home business for Silicon Labs, so that's home automation, home security for IoT. Silicon Labs is the leading wireless IoT silicon provider, so we provide the silicon solutions for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Matter, Thread, all the wireless technologies that connect the IoT devices in the home. And increasingly, those wireless SoCs, wireless processors, are becoming the AI engine for the edge devices in the home as well. So we're increasingly investing in AI technology, both software and silicon.
Fantastic. And we actually released a white paper, complimentary white paper with Silicon Labs earlier this year, all around AI acceleration of the edge, optimizing product design. So it's complimentary to download if you'd like. We also have Elizabeth Tobey. Elizabeth is the CMO with TechSee.
Hi, lovely to be here, first CES. TechSee is a visual agentic AI company. For us, I would say that the simple, short answer of what we do and why we do it is right now in the home, in business, with agents, with field service agents, if you can't see, you can't find a solution. And so we are bringing visual AI technology into use cases around the smart home because we really think that that visual intelligence layer is that connective tissue as devices become more complex and as the whole ecosystem of devices becomes more complex, that there's no way that in a silo each device can be smart enough to solve all the problems and serve all the needs. And to be able to actually have that visualization of connectivity or actually the context of what's going on in the home, you're going to be able to see the solution and get better results, which means better business results, happier customers, and massive cost savings.
Awesome. Great to have happy customers. That's what we're aiming at for sure. Yianni, the CTO and founder of Philips Hue at Signify.
Hi, great to be here. I work for Signify, the world's largest producer of lighting infrastructure for buildings, outdoor spaces, and homes, where I spend my focus. We're the former lighting division of Philips. I am the CTO and one of the founders of Philips Hue. We have, for the last 13 years, been trying to transform the role of lighting inside our homes to unlock the potential that it can bring beyond illumination, just helping people see, to make our homes more secure, more pleasant, more helpful spaces. And a key way in which we've been doing that in the last years is by practically applying AI in our products to unlock new use cases and ease the way that people interact with their homes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, all of you, for being here. I want to start with two things. First, to really see where you guys think the consumer really is at with AI, what they're open to, what sort of preconceived notions they're kind of coming to the table with, and then we'll talk about exactly how you're applying it kind of in your products and your businesses and get into some real applications. But I love to make sure the consumer voice here is at the table, and I love to start there. So Robin, I'm going to start with you here and then maybe go to George. Where is the consumer today? How do they really feel about AI?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of hype, as we've all seen in the media, what's happening with AI, the AI bubble potentially. And so I think consumers are mixed right now. I think there's a lot of fun applications that they're seeing and playing around with, but I think real adoption's really going to come when it becomes part of their daily lives and living in the background, making things easier, better, smarter, faster, for example.
Okay. George, what are you seeing from customers?
Yeah, so it's taken a while to mature and really live up to some of the hype that is there, and the hype is enormous. It is really starting now to deliver practical benefits for consumers. The way I look at AI application towards consumer products is two-sided. It's a fantastic way in which you can interact with technology in a more natural way, leveraging the natural language understanding in order to generate complex actions for your home. But the other side, and that's where we've recently launched, I think, some of the most exciting features, it's a fantastic way to understand the complexity of what is happening inside the home through a variety of different sensing impacts you can have, bringing that together to give actually harmonized insights that can drive action in the home. And that's really delivering value today.
So go ahead and give us a concrete example. Like, how would a consumer experience that? Would they even know it's AI that's causing, right, the action or easing the job that the devices are trying to do? Go ahead and give us an example.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're actually announcing here at CES this week is we're offering a totally new way to interact with how you set up convenience automations within the Philips Hue system. This has always been something that has been possible, but has been difficult. You've had to say, if this input triggers with these conditions, then do this action. And that has been a barrier which has stopped a lot of consumers unlocking that value of just having the homes support them in a more natural way. What you will be able to do in the next weeks when we launch this is you will just be able to describe what you would like your home to do, and our AI assistant will then interpret that and map that onto the automation capabilities of the system with the sensing inputs they have to just create an automation so that next time they walk into the room when it's already dark and it's within a certain time window within the week, the right set of actions will be triggered. And that, we think, will make it a lot more accessible for people to unlock what for me is real value, which is our homes don't need to be interacted with. They just react to us to support.
Have integrated them or do routines in any real way. So, that means most, right? 60%, most of smart home device users are not actually creating integrations and routines today. It's very difficult to do. So, great application there. Elizabeth, tell us, how you guys are implementing AI and to support the consumer.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's important, and going back to what you said about how folks are using AI and if they know there's AI, for the consumer level, I don't think it's as important. I think consumers right now are getting much more comfortable using AI. I think LLMs and generative AI have really helped us get more comfortable and understand where it's useful and where it's maybe novel and interesting. For TechSee, what we're really looking at is being able to empower consumers to be able to understand all of their devices and to know what's working, what's not working, and what next steps have to be taken. And for this, it really means about adding value so that, again, if we're talking about an application of something like Wi-Fi, being able to actually see the signal, understand where that unseen portion is working, where it may be weak, and what to do next. And this helps because it's building a better relationship and trust between the company, the brand, and the consumers, as well as giving a lot of ability to have upsell and relationship building throughout the environment. So these are the technologies that I think are the most important with AI right now, and where I think that we're going and where we are going beyond the hype, and really seeing this level of intelligence help uplift us in a way that other kinds of automation or even human beings never could before, is being able to make those connections. And as I said, these devices are incredibly complex. And so in their own right, no matter how smart they are, they're still operating in a silo where they only have their own data. And what you really need is that connective tissue in between to have this intelligence layer. And because we are able to use AI to visualize all of that and bring the unseen out into the world for the companies and the consumer, we're unlocking a lot of ability to get more out of each individual device and build this ecosystem together.
Yeah, and you're speaking a lot about solving some of the complexities, not only for the consumer, also right for the brands, for the manufacturers, for the service providers. And so, Colin, I want to come to you here from Silicon Labs' perspective. Tell us a little bit more. You mentioned a little bit in your intro, but what you're really doing to help the manufacturers who are trying to implement AI in their products, right? And what's kind of the state there, and what are manufacturers asking of you at Silicon Labs?
So there's two real areas that we're focused on. One is in terms of making it easier to implement the system. So using AI for development. So we've recently launched SDKs where your code generation, your code development can use AI. So that's part of it from an engineering perspective. From a consumer perspective, one of the challenges of Edge AI is, in order to really drive IoT adoption, the devices cannot be expensive. A consumer is not going to walk into a store and impulse buy a $300 camera, but they will impulse buy maybe a $20 or a $30 camera. So if you're putting AI into those devices, the SoC that's doing the AI processing at the edge needs to be cost effective and it needs to be power efficient. You can't drop in a Cortex A-class processor that's running at a gigahertz. The cost structure doesn't make sense. And you can't drop in a huge battery in order to give you a year's power or a year's battery life on a battery-powered camera. So what we're looking at is architectures that are tuned and optimized for specific use cases, specific applications, and that scales from putting very small vector instruction sets into the cores or into the devices to just do very simple wake word detection or simple run simple AI models, all the way through to much larger AI accelerators that are, again, they're designed very specifically for the instructions that are required. And that means you're not spending dollars on the SoC solution, and you're not running a part that's going to consume watts of power as the system is being implemented.
So that really gets to the heart, right, of what a lot of people in this room are trying to figure out today, right, which is we were already trying to figure out what business models work just for smart home products generally. And now we throw AI in the mix and the cost there, and should we be doing more at the edge or doing more in the cloud, and how do these business models work? Just kind of a quick follow-up there for you, Colin. Are you seeing what you're doing at Silicon Labs and working with manufacturers mean that they're favoring more on edge? Does that help with the cost? And then maybe George, I'll go to you and to talk a little bit about the business models around AI and the consumer.
Yeah, so the short answer is it depends.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's not going to be either edge or cloud. It's going to be a hybrid of both. And in fact, there may well be intermediate steps between those two nodes as well where other AI processing is done. So it depends very much on the use case, the type of compute capabilities you're looking for, your power consumption, all these factors. The short answer is Edge AI. We're seeing significant uptick in Edge AI. Device makers, device manufacturers are wanting to put AI into their devices. It's optimized for applications where we need a quick decision at the node, where privacy is important. Perhaps you don't want to send the data over the internet, where where you're looking for contextual awareness within the home and wanting to keep things within the home. The cost tends to be a one-time upfront. You pay slightly more for the device, and that's your cost. There's no ongoing cost of having the capability there. Cloud-based is where you're going to have an ongoing model. You need ideally a subscription-based model or some kind of services revenue to fund the constant cloud traffic and the costs associated with that. But it's going to be optimized for applications where there's a need for constant learning, where the models are going to need to continually retrain. There's going to be some level of adaptation within the system, or where perhaps you need that contextual awareness now outside the home. So within a neighborhood, you're looking to share data, or within a city, you're looking to share data for the AI to truly be effective. So it's going to be a mix. And then we're also seeing now scenarios where there's maybe a need for more heterogeneous compute within the home. Everybody in the home has devices with AI accelerators across their PCs or their games consoles or even their networking gateways. Can the IoT systems share that compute capability across the home as well? So creating a further hybrid kind of model.
Yeah, and then how does the value get shared?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so George, let me go to you, and then Robin to talk about the value of how contextual intelligence unlocks maybe some new business models. But George, with Philips Hue and Signify, what decisions have you made on how you think about services, right? You think about specifically attached to AI capabilities, the great use cases that you were just describing. How do you bring that to the consumer?
Yeah. So how you actually monetize this AI capability inside products, I think is a big challenge that a lot of companies are still struggling with. Because I do think the reality is that there is not a lot of appetite for additional subscriptions to come in, right? A lot of how we are monetizing this is indeed, like Colin was talking about, through selling additional hardware with capabilities and processing on the edge in the device itself. Anything where you are leveraging things in the cloud and continuous processing there is going to give you an additional continuous operating cost that you're not going to be able to cover in other ways. Where we have had some success is when we are able to replace an existing purchase with a software purchase that performs the same action, right? So we have a capability leveraging technology similar to what Origin offers, where previously we had a physical motion sensor that's sensing using passive infrared. We rolled out a software capability leveraging AI features, which analyzes wireless signals between light bulbs in order to generate a motion event that can trigger automations or security events without the need to purchase additional hardware. And there we have had some success in actually charging a recurring fee for that, where we have an anchor point grounding the price they were paying for this before in a hardware cost, and we can replace that with software. We've done similar things with our entertainment lighting synchronization use cases, where we replace a hardware product with a subscription, and a lot of that is enabled by advances in AI that allows us to do that replacement. So there we've had some success, but when we try and force additional subscriptions for new features and functionalities on consumers, we see very low uptake, and actually I think we see that a lot in other industries for consumer adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the business model that more contextual intelligence unlocks, and also for what type of players. So there are some players that their primary business is services, internet service providers, for instance, mobile carriers, others, security players, where there's already a services business model. How does the increasing context play into that?
Yeah, and I think we talked about monthly recurring revenue services, which is something many of us are striving for. I think where we're going to be able to charge for that and adding on some of this contextual service is where there's real value for the consumer. And so where chargeable use cases, an interesting opportunity comes into play is where there's existing infrastructure, like routers, like an existing security system, for example, where we can add additional value, like I mentioned. So what that means is, let's take security as an example. In security, there's a lot of false alarm and alarm fatigue that happens today. And so adding that contextual AI on top of the existing services can add a significant value to the consumer in being able to eliminate or significantly reduce false alarms, something which is of a high value to consumers.
Yeah, certainly. Our research says among one of the top pain points in the security industry is those false alarms. It may not result in actually false dispatch, where a first responder is actually getting all the way to your home, but man, it's annoying if it's dinging you and you didn't really want that to be. And that talks a little bit about, user engagement, user loyalty, churn, and when you start, especially when you're in a services business, that churn factor, kind of is everything. Elizabeth, maybe you can tell us a little bit more. Maybe can you give us some concrete examples about how the way you're deploying AI is resulting in measurable impact with that consumer relationship? Is it reduced truck rolls? Is it longer subscription life? Is it lower churn? How are the businesses that you're working with, like how do you actually measure the impact of the AI that you're rolling out in TechSee?
With the examples you just gave, the answer is yes.
Okay.
So I think there is, and I think it has to be both places. It needs to be cost savings and efficiency as well as increased value and that relationship building and that premium value for the consumer. Both of those things have to happen. And I think that, you know, when we're talking about churn risk, the early part of the relationship is one of the most important ones, where if there is something that goes wrong, whether it's a hardware fault, whether it's something in the home that could be diagnosed, again, if you could see the unseen, or if it's something that you can save having a technician come out, because consumers don't want technicians in their house. Technicians are very expensive. All of these things can help save someone during those crucial 60, 90-day period. One of the examples that we have is one of our very large clients has, I would say, hundreds and thousands of different models of a product in the home. And as you can imagine, a 2024 model versus a 2025 might have small differences that human beings may not be able to tell the differences between. But the troubleshooting, the fixes, the codes, the blinking lights that could go wrong, the batteries that you might need to replace them, they're all different. And so when you're talking about those hundreds or thousands of different models, this is where AI and visual AI can really excel, because it can help diagnose the problem, know exactly which kind of model it is and what steps to take. And again, this is whether you're in an assistive position, you know, on the phone or interacting on chat, or doing something completely self-service. And I think that's very important, and that's where, again, you can have that relationship building. You are saving on truck rolls. You are saving that customer who otherwise might bounce to a different company saying that this is the problem of the technology when it's actually a very simple problem. And you also have the ability to have upsell opportunities. So I think that those are really huge for us. We have a customer that I think had 75% reduction in truck rolls in their first year, just because so many of their problems could be solved by communicating visually and having the AI diagnose the problem directly. And that can be a game changer, and it's not just about that environmental impact and that cost savings, but also the ease of use that I think consumers expect right now. And that's where I think that the business model is really going to work, because if you bake this into the next generation of products and services, people will pay more, because to them it will work more effectively every single time, and anytime something goes wrong, the answer to solve that problem is much more readily available on their terms and on their time faster. Nobody wants to have to call and wait a week to get something fixed, and I think with AI that is now a reality. But again, you need to add in all the senses. Right now we've been operating too much on voice and text, and that's where we really want to bring that visual sense in, which is so important for human communication.
Yeah, let me stick with the tech support piece in a second. Let's see if I have this here. So when we do, tech support is one of these things that almost everybody who's working in consumer IoT is thinking, okay, this might be a place that I can apply some AI for cost efficiencies, but also like how far do we go before the consumer is really annoyed and they just want to talk to a human. We've done testing around some of the top AI benefits in the smart home and what consumers find to be valuable or not valuable. And these are just the top 12. We did a big long list. And you can see some of the top most valuable kind of AI benefits relate to safety and security, which continue to be kind of like the core of the smart home, but also monitoring the home network for threats, providing tech support, helping me set up new products. So I think there's consumer willingness here, but just Elizabeth, back to you there on, where is AI too much versus needing a human, and what advice do you have for those who are pulling AI into their own support processes on striking that balance?
And again, I think that when we talk about acceptance of AI, yes, there are generational and preferential differences between the consumer bases, but I think there's also situational and use case. As you're saying, if there is something very high value to someone or high stress, you're probably still going to want to talk to a person. And that doesn't mean that there isn't AI behind the scenes, it's just a different use case and a different application. And I do think that even in these self-service kinds of applications, we still are struggling with chatbots, failing or not being able to handle those complicated, complex situations, which again, we're talking about a smart home, we're talking about multiple devices working together. Now, all of these things are working in an ecosystem, but they're not all talking to each other, and so we don't have that connective layer in between. And so I think that what we need to do is adapt and really understand preferences and needs and be able to switch very seamlessly between the two, because there's something that someone might want to start out handling themselves and AI can assist them, and then there's a reason why it needs to escalate. And having that be seamless and natural and feel very effortless to that end consumer is the thing that is most important. And again, we have that technology and capability now. We just need to make sure that we connect this together so that each step of the process feels as one cohesive journey. And right now, again, we are still operating too much in silos and those individual use cases and not how the use cases chain together to get to a final solution. Yeah. And I think that's really the crux of it.
Well, and that's one place I really wanted to go, is talking about the connections between all the different companies that are trying to play in the room and what that means in the AI era. And maybe Colin, I'll come back to you here. If you could talk about the progress we're seeing in data and device standardization, or the way in which data is shared or not, when it comes to kind of these AI-driven features, because a lot of what many of you talked about is we can know so much more if we're collaborative. And that's been is a difficult business question, but also technical question. So maybe Colin, you can start.
Absolutely, and the industry in general, I think, is at an early phase of this. I'm relatively new to IoT. I joined Silicon Labs 5 years ago, and at that point, Matter was one of the big buzzwords, and so Matter's the first step in the process. So Matter lays the foundation in terms of how the devices communicate. We now have the ability for the standardized communication and the standardized application layer to be in place to let the devices talk to each other. Now what's starting to happen is the alliances, the industry bodies have started to switch the conversation from the communication channel to what goes over that channel. What's the semantic data models that will be in place? How do we share context? How do we share device capabilities across the platforms so that all of these ecosystems, all of these disparate devices can communicate in a way that we get the intelligence at the home level and not at the device level? Beyond that, the next phase that is we're even earlier in talking about, but we're very aware that we need to get to, is the security, the privacy, the trust issues, and how we make sure they're all in place. We can have all the technology in the world, but if the consumer doesn't understand it and trust it sufficiently, it won't work. So we're also looking at those elements too.
Okay, so Robin, let me come to you here on the privacy, security, trust piece, right? Having sensors in our home that are sort of passively understanding our patterns, understanding behaviors, on one hand is fantastic for the user because you don't have to do anything. You don't necessarily even have to set up many new sensors at this point, right? You can learn so much around the devices that are already in your house. At the same time, there's the factor of who do I trust? Is my data being protected? Are those concerns ramped up in the AI era, and how do you think about getting ahead of those?
Yeah, I completely echo what Colin was saying in terms of the privacy. We've done a lot of research, and consumers are telling us that privacy is number one when it comes to AI, and so that's going to lend more towards an edge model. And but I think what Colin had said earlier was about the hybrid and the processing power going up to the cloud where we need it to, but having some of that on edge. But with all of that and how things are changing, how chipsets are changing, I think there's going to need to be more education for the consumer, because there's not all AI is the same. They do very different things. They're processed the same way. Data is handled very differently across all of them. And so I do think there's going to need to be some education along the way to be able to bring the consumer along in how we're thinking about that.
Yeah. Who do you think are the most impactful? Who do consumers listen to? Conversations.
I think consumers are really leaning into their internet service providers as one of those places that they're listening to, having a lot of Wi-Fi, obviously providing Wi-Fi, but providing that router in the home. They're looking to them for additional services. They're looking to internet service providers to help lead them along that journey.
Okay. George, let me come to you to understand how you're thinking about it, from a brand perspective first, and what we were talking about, and where you share data and where you don't, maybe within the larger ecosystem, right?
Yep.
Is it, you looking at it as a use case by use case perspective, or allow the consumer to choose what they want, to control, or how they want, let's say, Philips Hue products to be part of a larger ecosystem, or is it more proprietary and, like I said, kind of use case by use case, and these integrations make sense, let's enable them? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so the approach that we've taken with this is really about transparency and control.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to be extremely clear what data is being generated, what is staying local, and what is going up to the cloud for additional processing or going to partners. And you need to give the consumer control over that. The Hue system by default works fully local inside the home, and it's always a consumer choice whether to expose the products and the derived insights they generate towards partner ecosystems, whether that be with Matter or a cloud interface, or in the future exposing the AI agents that we generate towards other AI agents. That's going to be, I think, the next wave of kind of interoperability beyond the device connectivity piece. So it's all about transparency and control, and as long as you make that very clear in your UI and you give the control, and by default you share as little as possible and it's opt-in, we've seen that consumers can trust this and can accept and start using it, and do in reality expose it to the places where they see value to unlock the potential in the broader home.
Yeah. Well, you opened the door there, so let's go there to the AI agent future, right? So again, all the businesses in the space have been building this direct-to-consumer relationship through their applications primarily, right? So now we all have a ton of apps. Consumers tell us that they do oftentimes use several different control applications, whether that be the big ecosystems, or that be their security system, or that be that one device that they love, a control platform, but they're using lots of different applications. And the idea being that in the future, maybe you're only interacting with a single agent who's pulling from all of these different scenarios and all this great development that everybody's put into their applications. Does that fall by the wayside? Does that need to continue to be supported? At what point do we get to this sort of AI agentic-led user interface? I love, George, because you opened the door there. I'm going back to you as to how you guys are thinking about that today. We're clearly years, I think, still away from that being the predominant reality. But
So AI agents is, I think, a key trend that the industry needs to wrap their head around, because it has the potential to be the future of the mobile app, right? One of the areas where we've been developing an AI agent is, we have taken all of our lighting design knowledge from people that are going into spaces and deciding exactly the placement, configuration, setting of lights to create a certain ambient, and we've been distilling that into an AI agent using our in-house knowledge, and then making that available to our consumers. Most people would never be able to pay for a license to do this. Now we can have an AI do this. Now, we see the need to not only offer that via our app, but to actually expose that towards other places people are interacting with their homes. And I think there's the real potential that some of the, let's say, more general AI assistants will start pulling expert capabilities from agents, from brands that have deep internal knowledge, and that will kind of be the new way in which that is being exposed, potentially replacing, but I think more likely complementing the proprietary mobile apps and user interfaces which form that role today. I think this is an area where how this will interoperate within the smart home at scale is still very much in development. These AI assistants for the home are pretty fresh, but there's a lot of work going on, a lot of interesting technologies out there which I think are going to enable, potentially over the next year, the integration of, let's say, more proprietary expert agents into more general purpose AI systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see kind of the beginnings of that movement now. I was at PepCom last night and saw at least one kind of general intelligence agent, not focused on the smart home, focused on making sure you can get your Uber and your Instagram eats coming to your house. But this is a hot place to solve as well. So we have just a few more minutes. to go. So I'd love to do a quick rapid fire round. We're going to do overhyped or underhyped, okay, of items in the AI space. We're going to go right down the road. So Robin, you're starting us off.
All right.
Okay. So overhyped or underhyped edge AI?
Underhyped.
Underhyped.
Obviously. Okay. Yeah, from Colin.
Underhyped, it's going to be very important.
Underhyped, that's going to be how it gets rolled out at scale.
Okay, George, we're going to start with you. Go back down this way. LLMs in devices, overhyped or underhyped?
I think that is overhyped. I think the LLM layer can likely sit up in the cloud and use AI capabilities on the edge.
Okay.
Overhyped, I think we're very excited about them because they're accessible, but there's way cooler things out there that are going to be much more effective.
Okay.
In the short term, overhyped, but I think they will be optimized such that in the mid to long term, they'll be more valuable for us.
Okay. Robin?
+1 on overhyped. I agree with what George had said.
Okay, great. How about big focus already here at CES, robot helpers, overhyped or underhyped?
I'm going to go with overhyped on that one.
Overhyped.
Overhyped, too early.
Yeah. Overhyped general purpose helpers are still quite a few years out.
Yeah, they're focusing on better stuff now. Folding laundry, I'm almost in, but not that price, right? Just make my kids do it, like fold your laundry. Okay, George, starting with you, coming back down. Personalized advertising.
I would say that is underhyped. I think giving the right message at the right time can have an enormous helpful impact and business impact.
Okay.
Underhyped, but again, use caution. We have to be really careful and nuanced.
Okay.
I'm going to break the trend and say overhyped. I don't think the consumer wants it.
Okay.
As a consumer, I love it.
Okay.
But I'd say underhyped because I think the ability to deliver that right message and be really precise in how we're doing that is awesome and incredibly valuable.
Okay, last question. One AI feature consumers will actually love in 2026. And so Robin, we'll start with you, and George, you can end us off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of an overall, but the accuracy and the improvement there to be able to help really trust and bring the reliability that they're looking for is going to be more of what they're going to see in 2026.
Okay.
There's two areas where I think consumers have problems with IoT. One is commissioning, the other is setting up routines. If AI can help on either of those or both of those in the next year, that's a huge hit.
Okay, I allowed one, but I'll allow you two. That's okay. That's all right. All right, one feature consumers will actually love an AI.
I mean, I'm fairly new to TechSee, and the reason why I joined is because I have been working in the space for a while, and visual AI seems just like an amazing step that we don't have. But I want to add on to not just visual AI, but the visual AI compounded with reasoning that is going to actually make us feel like we are interacting with something that is intelligent and intuitive and can actually help us fully. I think this is going to move from something that is a nice to have or something that folks don't necessarily believe in into something that is mission critical and probably where most companies start when they're thinking about support or onboarding.
Okay, great. George, what will consumers love about AI in 2026?
I think in 2026, natural language interaction in our home will actually work.
Yeah.
And people will like that.
Yeah. Okay, please join me in thanking our panelists for their expertise.